So if you could both please state for me your names and your occupations.
I'm Rashida Abdul-Khabeer. I'm actually Director of Community-Based Health Services at Access Matters.
My name is Brian Sims. I'm the State Representative from Center City, Philadelphia in the House of Representatives.
All right, well, thank you for joining us today at our lovely conference. We appreciate you being here and speaking for everyone. You both had very, very wonderful and powerful speeches, I might add. I very much so enjoyed them. So tell us a little bit about the conference so far, how you felt about the panel that we just heard in there.
Well, I think that the theme of the conference is one that is really very critical to the way our society is in a sort of current state, that really looking at how we're going to engage the communities, the public, in improving the conditions in marginalized communities is really important work. Certainly with the concerns around the various disparities, whether they're health or social economic disparities, becomes increasingly important as we see the gap widen between those that have and those that don't. And being able to speak to that today was really important.
I think the thing that I'm going to take away that I find most exciting about this is that we don't really have to guess at the impact of minority and affinity voices in the making of public policy. We know exactly how impactful those voices can be. What we don't always know is we don't know those channels, those pipelines to get those voices heard, to get them engaged, to get them involved. What we've got here is a conference, as we heard earlier, of the experts that are going to make this happen. They're going to draw upon their life experiences to impact policy in a way that we all dramatically need. You know, where we all too often see the sort of the cold hand or the cold eye of, you know, that stares in or that reaches in from afar to impact our lives. And I think one of the things that we've learned is whether it's at a municipal, a state, or at the federal level, when our voices are being heard impacting our lives, that impact is most fruitful and can be most lasting.
Okay, well, very good. So what do you believe to be the role of the minority within public administration?
Boy, I honestly I don't even know where to begin with it. It's such a broad question. You know, the role of minority in public administration is the role of everybody in public administration, and that's to call upon your life experiences, to call upon your goals, your motivations, the impact that you think that you can have, and to impact the greater community around you. It's one of the, I was going to say, perhaps one of the most American of our values. It's a very human value to. In Judaism, they call it tikkun olam, the idea of healing the world around you by using the things that you have to impact that world. I think that's true of not just minority public administrators, it's true of all administrators.
I absolutely agree. I think one of the things that I've learned is that we all hold a piece of the puzzle, and unless we are active and engaged in giving of that, there's always going to be a part of the puzzle missing. And certainly for minorities, affinity groups, it becomes even more important to have your piece of that puzzle put in place. And so the willingness to engage is what we have to encourage people to do. I think this conference has given us a real opportunity to push people to that direction.
Okay. A lot of panels have discussed economic disparities. Even in some of your speeches, you touched on the financial needs, like the organization that stops doing things once they lose funding. So how can a conference like this do a better job with reaching out and engaging those communities, the community leaders that we were discussing earlier, who may not have the financial means to even, say, pay for the registration fee? How can we do a better job of engaging the rest of the community?
I would say that rightfully or wrongfully, advocacy takes money, but it also takes advocates. You know, every one of us that's engaged in public policy at one point or another has gone to a donor, has gone to a funder, has gone to a source that can provide you a resource that you need desperately. And I think that's what a conference like this can do. You know, I think collectively we would all agree on the 4 or 5 most important challenges facing, you know, our cities or our towns or our communities. What we have to do is go the next step, and that's create channels that are going to fund the work that we do on them. You know, I hate some days that I have to have advocates for women's rights and reproductive rights in the Capitol fighting for something that I believe that should be a given. But we don't live in a society where we're given things unless we ask, frankly, unless we demand them. And so what a conference like this does is it gives voice to the advocates that are going to impact those finances and that change.
So do you think that we would benefit from perhaps showing sources or providing scholarship applications from maybe other organizations or something to help allow some of those other community leaders to attend? Or is it their responsibility to find those on their own if they truly want to be an advocate?
I think that when you're talking about people whose lives are complicated and complex because of the situations that they're in, whether it's economic or health or educational, there's a part of our responsibility to reach out to them. Yes, we want them to make an effort and to move forward on it, but I think we also have a responsibility to bring to their attention the avenues through which they can make a difference in their communities. I think providing scholarships, if that's the way we want to frame them, that becomes important. It could just simply be an invitation to participate in some type of discussion or forum that's a part of the conference, not necessarily the whole of the conference, but certainly an opportunity to dialogue with what public administration is about and what policies are, to have an opportunity to meet with our representatives as they come and talk to us about it. I think there are a lot of ways in that regard that we can be more open. It doesn't always have to be about money. Money's important, certainly, but having an opportunity to have your voice heard doesn't really take cash, it just takes time.
Okay. So how can we take what we've done here, all the panels, the research, the talking that we've done here, how can we best take what we've done and integrate it into the communities that we've been discussing?
I mean, advocate, 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 advocate. So it's a simple word with a very broad concept, and the idea is that we need to change decision makers. There are days that I can't stand the levels of bureaucracy that it takes to get involved in just one of my neighborhoods. But those are the levels of bureaucracy in place. We can both work to change them, but also work with them. And it's very difficult to be constantly opposed to the mechanisms in place when you need to work with those mechanisms. So I think that one of the important things to recognize is that we can both pound on that front door of the City Hall and demand change while we're also working within that City Hall to create change.
I think the other thing that we probably don't think about very much is utilizing community newspapers to give a summary of what actually has occurred here. You've come into Philadelphia, you've had these wonderful panels and great discussions, but if you want the community to know about it, you have to put it where the community can hear about it. I'm not sure if there's going to be anyone attending any of the radio programs that we have. We have public service slots. Something will come up on Sunday that perhaps report out, as it were, to the community about what happened here, what your expectations are, what you see as the future direction of what you're trying to accomplish with your current theme. I think that's a way to get it out to the community. People listen to the radio still. If it comes on the radio, it's going to be on YouTube and it's going to be on Facebook and those kind of things. I think putting the message out in the community through the media that's currently the talk of the town, as it were, is a really good way to communicate that. And so that you're not seen as outsiders. You've actually participated because you've engaged the community.
What would you tell for someone who's just starting out and wanted to get into advocacy? How would you tell them to go about starting?
I'd say show up. 2/3 of the people that work with me that help craft my policy approach are people that showed up and offered to help. Senator Tammy Baldwin is fond of saying that if you're not in the room, you're being talked about, and if you're in the room, you're being talked with. Make sure you're in the room. Unfortunately, this isn't a world that sends out invites, and you need to show up and show up and show up and show up. And sometimes that'll be as the frustrated, angry outsider. Sometimes that'll be as the expert insider. But show up.
I think that becomes extraordinarily important when we have so many issues that we're confronting. I have become a real connected person to every state representative's constituent or constituent services staff member. That is a way of expressing your ideas, but it's also to hear about what exactly is the primary issue that we need to be addressing. Volunteering for those kinds of things are really important. It helps you learn. You've got to read, and I know how complicated that can be, but you've got to read the papers, you've got to look at editorials so that you have some facts that you're operating from. And if you're not sure, ask somebody who's involved in it. Be bold, come forward and really participate.
Okay. So our final question for you is really just a general question. As far as the conference setup and the logistics and how things have been laid out thus far, what are your thoughts about it? Is there anything that we could do to improve this conference for future years?
I will always say with a conference of minority public administrators, I hope that there is maybe not perhaps a focus, but at least a consideration of LGBT public administrators as well.
Well, I can tell you personally that was my topic, and then we had a whole panel with it, actually, so you missed it.
But I do think that sort of reinforcing the inclusiveness is important. While I'm excited to know that there was a panel, there's 3 days worth of conference. And so people need to be able to participate and integrate into all the activities. And the most important way for that to happen is sometimes you have to go and ask people, not just send out a wire, not just post an application, but really seek them out. We have organizations here, for example, in Philadelphia that probably don't know that there is such a thing as COPA, may not really understand what's the difference between this type of organization and, say, public health or any of the other, sort of master programs, that they really need more information. And I think the best way to do that is to reach out. Again, put the information out there.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your time and answering our questions. We really appreciate it, and we hope that you enjoy the rest of your stay.
Thank you.
Don't get up yet.